Okay, we're back. We are now on February 27, 2016, and we're still studying the days of Queen Esther. We didn't make it through Esther 2, I think. We're still in Esther 2, but we have to sidetrack because there's so many truths in the book of Esther, and there is so many things that we have studied, which is concepts of the Mare vision, right? And also we'll learn about the binding time. It's also the binding off time, the binding off period, and the binding time. These are the things that can be learned, but specifically the decrees that are taught in the time of the 7 kings of Medo-Persia, which brings in the timeline of the 7 kings of Medo-Persia into the seven thunders. All right. So when you understand that, you will eventually understand what it says in Revelation 22:10, when the 7 thunders will be revealed before our close of probation. But with that, we actually have to study the stories of Queen Esther. All right. Well, we'll continue where we left off. Let me find the slide. It is here. Esther 2, verse 13 and 14. We'll just review this one. Then, thus came every maiden unto the king. Whatsoever she desired was given her, to go with her out of the house of the women unto the king's house. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of the women, to the custody of Shashgaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. So Shashgaz kept the house of the concubines. Right? She came in unto the king no more. See? So if you are chosen by the king, you can stay with the king. But if you are not chosen, then you are what? You're cast out as a concubine. Except the king delighted in her, that she were called by name, and you will be called by name, right? Right. So right there you understand there's a covenant. There's a covenant history right there. Okay? All right. For many are called, but few are chosen. There's many virgins that are called, but, well, there's 10. 5 are chosen, right? Many are called, few are chosen. Matthew 22, verse 14. So what does Shashgaz mean? Oh, I added this. Did I add this last time? Okay. I added this time. Shashgaz means to succor the cut off, right? What does succor mean? Yeah, to give comfort to. So the house of Shashgaz, he's the one that comforts the concubines who have been cast off by the king, the rejects. The rejects, you're right? The sheep shearer who succor the cut off. What about Haggai? Remember, he's the one that keeps the house of the virgins, right? Right? He's the speaker, or the word, or the meditation. It's like the Holy Spirit. Okay, so Shushan the palace has three places to live in. One is the house of Haggai, which is the virgins that are called, they go there, right? Yeah, there's 10 virgins that are called, right? And there's the house of Shashgaz, which is the house of the concubines. Those are the ones that are cut off. Then the ones who are chosen, the one who is chosen gets to stay in the king's house. All right? Okay. All right. So, let's see. What else have I? Make sure I got everything right. Oh, okay. Right. So remember the 12 disciples. Who was the one that was cut off? Who was cast out? Who was bound and cast out? So Judas, yeah. So this is the time that Judas is also cast out because he is, well, yeah, he's not called, he's a concubine, but also he's a tares, right? So the tares. All right. Okay. We'll continue now. Esther 2, verse 15 and 16. Now when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, so Esther is the cousin of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter. Well, so obviously she's a lot younger. Yeah. Right. So he's the one that took care of her. Was come to go in unto the king. So now it's Esther's turn to go from Haggai's house to the palace. All right? She required nothing. Remember? All the other virgins, they had everything given to her. Right? They had everything. But Esther required nothing. What does it mean? But what Haggai, the queen's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of them that looked upon her. So Esther was taken unto King Ahasuerus in his house royal in the 10th month, which is in the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. So she did not require anything, and she was selected the queen to stay at the king's house and not become a concubine. So what happens to her? She becomes the queen, and she's no longer, well, she's no longer a virgin now, right? Right. But at least she's not cast out. Yeah. Right. All right. So this is, we know this is at the midnight cry, right? Yeah. Okay. So we'll see what happens here. Remember, the king remembered. He remembered, oh, you know what? I've come back. Yeah, I come back from my conquest, my attempted conquest of Greece, and I failed. Now I realize I don't have a queen. Okay, now I need a queen. So the virgins are first gathered, and the second decree is given. Is the gathering of the virgins. And that's when they started to become purified. And how are they purified? With myrrh, which means what? Myrrh means what? Mara? Myrrh? Bitter. And sweet odors is sweet. Bitter and sweet. So the purification is bitter and sweet. What is bitter and sweet? When you eat the what? What? When you eat the little book, right? It's a bitter and it is also sweet, right? First it is initially sweet and then it's bitter, right? Why is it bitter? Because every time you eat the little book, what do you have to do? You have to proclaim the message to who? To your brothers. To the rebellious house of Israel. That's what Jeremiah and Isaiah. They have to, when they eat little book, they have to proclaim it to the rebellious house of Israel. Have you tried to give this message to the rebellious house of Israel? How is it? How's that experience? You can attest to yourself that the experience is bitter, right? But when you receive the message, oh, it's so sweet. But when you want to give it to your friends, oh boy, it's bitter. Okay. So what is the star? Oh, that's the first woe. And this is when she is hidden, because Esther means star and also hidden, right? Okay, and what year was this? The 10th month of the 7th year of his reign. Okay, so the 6 months of purification with myrrh And then 6 months with the purification with sweet odors makes 12 months. All right? What are the 12? The 12, remind me of other lines that shows 12 in this between here and here. 12 what? 12 disciples, right? 120. The 12 yokes of oxen that Elijah was preparing. He was preparing himself by plowing in this time with 12 yokes of oxen, because this is the time of Elijah. But Elisha was in the time of preparation, because Elisha is this time period. So there's and then this is the 12 disciples, and this is the 70 disciples. But here you go, we have 12, all right? Okay, so this is the 10th month of the 7th year. Okay, so now we know that, so if this is the 10th month of the 7th year, this is the 10th month of the 6th year, right? Right. Okay, so this 10th month of the 6th year. So meaning this line is the 6th and the 7th year of the reign of Ahasuerus. Okay? All right. Okay, that's not difficult to see. Very easy. 10th month is right here. The 10th month of this previous year starts here, because this is 6 plus 6 months. All right. Okay, let's see. So this lines up with 9/11. This is 9/11, right? Because this is, the virgins are first gathered at 9/11. And the purification means the hiding time, right? The hiding time is this time, when it is called also the tarrying time. Okay. Elizabeth was pregnant, but she was hidden for 5 months until this time right here, right? This time, then she went out and eventually went to see her cousin Elizabeth, and the two of those women, they prophesied. So you have a doubling right there. So this is the midnight, and this is the midnight cry. There's most of the time when you find a doubling, it happens right here. But there's also a doubling here. Well, there's a second decree, right? There's second decree, but also the first and the second angel's message comes down here. There's a doubling right there. But most of doubling happens right there. Okay. We'll have to enlarge. We have to keep adding to that line. That still looks bare. Okay. 1 Corinthians 12, verse 8 to 10. Why was it that Esther needed nothing? Because she had grace that was sufficient for her. Because she only needed God's grace. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. All right? And I take pleasure in infirmities, reproaches, necessities, persecutions, and distress. For when I am weak, then I am strong. All right. Counsels to parents, teachers, and students. Teachers, awake to your responsibilities, your privilege, well may you inquire. Who is sufficient for these things? My grace is sufficient for thee. Is the assurance of the great teacher. If you leave him out of the question, seeking not his aid, hopeless indeed is your task. But in his wisdom and strength, you may nobly succeed. So that's why Esther needed nothing. She went into the house of the king with only the grace of Christ. Okay. Hey, by the way, Esther is one of the books in the Bible that has is for a woman. And another thing about Esther is the only book in the Bible that does not have the word God in it. Yeah, it doesn't have the word God. It's quite amazing. It does not have the word God. Right. Okay. All right. The Lord Jesus will always have a chosen people to serve him. When the Jewish people rejected Christ, the Prince of Life, he took from them the kingdom of God and gave it unto the Gentiles. God will continue to work on this principle with every branch of his work. When a church proves unfaithful to the word of the Lord, whatever their position may be, however high and sacred their calling, the Lord can no longer work with them. Others are chosen to bear important responsibilities. So, is God the respecter of men? No. He's not a respecter of churches either. Right? Obviously, because if the definition of a church is a structure, then he's not a respecter of that. He's a respecter of a church if it is his made with hands, made not with hands of man, right?
Yes.
Okay. Angels keep a faithful record of every man's work, and as judgment passes upon the house of God, the sentence of each is recorded by his name, and the angel is commissioned to spare not the unfaithful servants, but to cut them down at the time of slaughter. And that which was committed to their trust is taken from them. Their earthly treasure is then swept away, and they have lost all. That's why Esther did not need anything, because any earthly treasure will be lost anyway. And the crowns they might have worn, have they been faithful, are put upon the heads of those saved by the faithful servants, whose means was constantly in use for God. So, all right. So it went from Vashti to Esther. All right. Verse 17 and 18. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown. See now? The royal crown passes from Vashti to Esther upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king made a great feast. All right, now there's a king's feast here. Unto all his princes and servants, even Esther's feast is called Esther's feast. And he, yeah, oh, they like to party. And he made a release to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king. So gifts in the Bible are given to who? On birthdays, or is it given to kings and queens? Gifts are given to kings and queens. Like when the three wise men came, did they bring gifts? Was that a birthday gift? No, that's a gift for a king. These are gifts that are given to kings and queens. They're talking about. That's the literally. But what does release and gifts mean spiritually? Because now we are talking spiritual things, right? Right. There has to be. So what is a release and what are gifts? Oh yeah. Now we're gonna have to do line upon line here. Okay. First we do the release. Okay. This is actually very interesting. Deuteronomy 15 verse 1 to 2. At the end of every 7 years, thou shalt make a release. This is the release, right? We're doing line upon line. Release. And this is the manner of the release. Every creditor that lendeth aught unto his neighbor shall release, if he shall not exact it of his neighbor or his brother, because it is called the Lord's release. Every 7 years. And then until what is the 50th year?
Jubilee.
The Jubilee, right? Right. So that's also called the release, or the Jubilee is the year after the 7 times 7, right? The release. So the release. What is the release then? Release from what? Release.
From death,
Remission or death or suspension of labor, right? Right. Now, what is the release in the Hebrew word? Shemitah. Remember the ones who they were asking us whether we are going to actually acknowledge the Shemitah? Yeah. What is the Shemitah? Shemitah is the release, right? Now, do you realize that in September 25, from September 25, 2014 until September 13, 2015, is the year of the 7th Shemitah. And for those who actually believe in the sun, the moon, the stars, and the feasts, right? There are 4 blood moons between April 15, 2014 and September 28, 2015. And they said, oh, you know what? The Pope is going to come to Philadelphia on one of those blood moons or something like this. And something's going to happen. Remember? And they said, it's the Shemitah. And people are like, oh, something's going to happen. Right? Shemitah. Right. Yeah. Did something happen? Well, actually, the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage on when? June 26, but that wasn't even a blood moon. Yeah. But anyway, the Shemitah. Shemitah is the release. It's every 7th year. All right? So if somebody asks you about Shemitah, now you know what Shemitah is. It's a release. Now, I actually read this somewhere, but it is said that usually the Persian monarchs, when they want to give gifts to their wives, they assign each gift to a city. So the city has to bring a certain gift to the queen, right? Each city. So when Queen Esther made a release, some people say that, well, maybe she made a release so that city does not have to bring that gift, right? You're not obliged to. It's a release. But release is actually something that you need to understand spiritually, because release is remission and a remission of sin. Because at this time, because we understand when you're in the hiding time, you're really working on your character so that your character will become perfect and your sins are remitted, because your sins are remitted. And it's remitted only by the blood, right, the blood of Christ. It's only by a shedding of blood is there remission of sin. Only by the shedding of blood. So at this time, you realize that your cup of iniquity is going to be what? Is going to be taken by Jesus, right? Right. You're going to be released from your 2520. Do you remember this statute, children?
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
It's Judas kissing Jesus.
Yeah, where at?
Is this the Vatican?
No, not at the Vatican. See the steps?
Oh, no, this is in
Mhm.
this is still in Rome, though.
Yeah, it's the steps, the Sancta Scala, right?
For all the Philippines.
Where, yeah. And who's kissing who here?
Judas.
Yeah, this has something to do with gifts. Yeah, because who replaced Judas? Matthias. And what does Matthias mean? The gift of Jesus, the gift of Yahweh. All right? Okay. All right.
Did you take that?
And they, no, I didn't. And they gave forth their lots, and the lot fell upon Matthias. And he was numbered with the 11 apostles. Right? So this is in this time period. Because remember, there's 12. 12 is that time period, right? 12, 120, 6 plus 6, right? But what happened? One died. One fell away, one was a tare, right? One fell away, one was a concubine. But we need 12. So you need to have a numbering. So when is the number made up? When is the number made up? Right there, for the priests. When Matthias actually replaced Judas, right? Then the 12 are numbered. Okay? What does Matthias mean? The gift of Yahweh. The gift of Jah. Spirit of prophecy. While they were awaiting the descent of the Holy Ghost, they supplied the office left vacant by Judas. 2 men were selected who, in the careful judgment of the believers, were best qualified, right? For the office, all right? And the Spirit of God selected Matthias. Okay. Was it something that they voted for? That's, yeah. You can't vote on office like this, right? Yeah. Okay. Right. And right, they joined in prayer because there was 120 that at that time voted, right?
That's not Jesus' mother.
Okay. What is the qualification to be part of the 12 disciples? Because the 12 disciples are the priests, right? And it's like it's what Esther was when she was first called, right? And she was purified for 6 months and then 6 months. She was called to be a priest at that time. It's like the calling of the 12 disciples. So what's the qualification to be part of the 12 disciples? In Acts 1:20-22. For it is written in the book of Psalms, let the habitation be desolate and let no man dwell there, and his bishopric let another take. This is who? This is talking about Judas, right? When Judas fell from the tree, he hanged himself when he fell. His bishopric, meaning his position as a bishop, as a disciple, has to be taken by somebody else, right? Wherefore of these men which have accompanied with us all the time that the Lord went in and out among us, beginning from the baptism of John unto that same day that he was taken up from us, must one be ordained to be a witness with us of his resurrection, right? So what's the qualification of Matthias? He has to have been with us even from, what's the baptism of John? 9/11. He has to be even with us, even from 9/11. Okay, what's another? Now, if the 12 disciples is the symbol of the 10 virgins, right? Because the 10 virgins are called at 9/11. The 10 virgins are called at 9/11. What's the qualification to be? They are lingering near the bride's house are 10 young women robed in white. Each carries a lighted lamp and a small flagon of oil. All are anxiously awaiting for the appearance of the bridegroom. So when the bridegroom is called, the bridegroom is tarrying or waiting or found to be late, and the 10 virgins are waiting. Where are they waiting? Are they waiting in the bride's house? They're lingering outside the bride's house. What is a house? A structure. What is the bride? The church. So the 10 virgins or the disciples, they are outside of the church structure. All right? So now you know who the priests are. All right? So who are the 10 virgins and who are the priests? They are those who have been called since 9/11 outside of the church structure. So is there a name that we kind of refer present truth? We call it present truth. Do you realize that? Yeah. Do you realize that if you're studying in home churches right now, outside of the church structure, you're one of the priests? But that comes with a big responsibility. Why? Not only that, but when does your probation close?
Midnight cry.
Yeah. It closes at the midnight cry. It comes a lot sooner, right? Because you're called right here. You're called right here, right? You're already called out of the bride's house. And you're lingering outside the bride's house, right? Remember, you have to witness the baptism of John, which is at 9/11. The baptism of Jesus by John at 9/11. So you're already out of the church structure, which is the 10 virgins, which is the priests, all right? But then they all wake up and they realize they either have or they don't have the oil right at the midnight cry. That's pretty scary.
But it's scary if you're not ready.
If no, you're not ready. Loma Linda messages. All right. What happens when? What happens to the wise virgins, and also those who actually have come into the time that we call the binding time, right? And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus. This prophecy points out clearly that the remnant church, right, those that actually have already come out, will acknowledge God in His law and will have the prophetic gift, right? Obedience to the law of God and the spirit of prophecy has always distinguished the true people of God, and the test is usually given on present manifestations. Ooh, wow. As the third angel's message arose in the world, which is to reveal the law of God to the church in its fullness and power, the prophetic gift was immediately restored. So when is the prophetic gift which is given? In the end time, right? When the third angel's message is given. So you need to identify, when is the third angel's message given? Because then when we see when the third angel's message is given, that's when you know that the prophetic gift is restored. That's when you're just working it backwards. You're finding out, okay, that's when the binding time is. This gift has acted a very prominent part in the development and carrying forward of this message. Okay, when was the third angel's message given? Let's see, was it 1989? No, it's not. That's the first angel's message being given, right? Is it 9/11? No, that's the first and second angel's message given.
So the midnight cry.
The midnight cry is when the second and the third angel's message is given. And then the third angel's message continues to be given and becomes stronger and stronger until it is the third angel's message that is empowered. So the third angel's message is given right here. And this is the time when the prophetic gift is restored. All right? To who? To those who were prepared right here. Mm-hmm. Who are those who are prepared right here?
Priests.
The priests. And who are the priests? Those who already came out. Mm-hmm. Boy, this is a tough thing for a lot of people. Yeah, you understand that now, the prophetic gift. Yeah. All right. So, okay. How is it that you're going to give? How are you going to get the prophetic gift? Okay, we did this already. Yeah, how are you going to get the prophetic gift? All right, in Numbers 12, verse 6. Remember, this is the story of Moses, because Aaron and Miriam wanted to also be the spokesman for Christ also. But God did not choose them. God said, I chose Moses. And the only way you are chosen is because you have received the what mirror? The vision, what vision? The Mara vision. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet, right, among you, the Lord will make myself known unto him in a vision, which is the Mara vision. What is the Mara vision? It is the, right, it is the reflection, right? It's the reflection. When you reflect, right? But you only can reflect if you have received the Mara vision. The Mara vision is the appearance of Christ. When you see Christ, that means Christ appears to you, right? So you see the appearance of Christ, you receive the Mara vision. Mara vision. That's the masculine, because Christ is the groom, right? And the Mara is the feminine feminine word for the vision, meaning because we are the bride, and then we actually reflect the character of Christ. So that when you look into the Mara, which means the mirror, which is made into a laver. When the priests, they wash their hands and they look into the laver, they're supposed to see their reflection. But when we look into the looking glass, we actually see Jesus. All right. And the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli. And the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision. There's no Hazon or Chazon vision at that time, right? Why? Because Eli has apostatized. Eli and his sons have apostatized. So the reason why there's no Chazon vision is because of the apostasy of the church, right? And you realize that there has been no Chazon vision. There's no prophetic vision in the church since Ellen White died in 1915. And Samuel lay until the morning. We skipped to where the part that he was called, right? Multiple times. How many times was he called? 4 times, right? And Samuel lay until the morning and opened the doors of the house of the Lord. And Samuel feared to show Eli the Mara vision, right? So Samuel received the Mara vision when he was 12 years old, right? 12. Oh, there's another 12. He was 12 years old when he received the Mara vision, and he became a prophet at that time, right? He became a prophet, he became a priest, and he became a judge. All 3 at the time. Okay, all right? That's Samuel. So Moses, Samuel, they all received the prophetic gift. It's also given to Jacob, Daniel, also Ezekiel, right? But for the priests, it's going to be given at the midnight cry, when the 3rd angel message is given, right? And it also given at the Sunday law, right? When that is going to be given to the Levites, right? Okay. So, we were talking about the virgins. So who are the virgins? The wise and the foolish, right? Who are the foolish? Let both grow together until the harvest. In the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather, remember gather. When you start gathering? At 9/11. Together first the tares and bind them. So gathering comes first. And then you start binding them. You bind first the tares in bundles and to burn them. Oh, just like, who's the tares between the 12 disciples? It was Judas. Judas had a falling away, and he had to be, he was bound first and then burnt. And then after that, you gather the wheat into my barn. So during this binding time, the tares are bound first and the wheat, all right? So who are the tares when you're talking about the virgins? It's the foolish virgins, right? Now, one way of actually saying is that Ellen White also said that the tares are the Laodiceans. So the foolish virgins are the Laodicean foolish virgins. So who are the wise virgins? If they're not Laodiceans, what are they? They're Philadelphians, right? The Philadelphian wise virgins, all right? And then I saw a third angel, said of my accompanying angel, fearful is his work, awful is his mission. He is the angel that is to select the wheat from the tares, to seal and to bind. So the binding and the sealing angel is the third angel. When does the third angel come? Midnight cry until the Sunday law. Midnight cry until Sunday law. So the sealing and the binding happens at that time. So this binding time starts at the midnight cry. All right? Okay. So who is it that is the angel? The angel, John saw another angel. This angel is who? Is the work of the people. It's the people. So the angel is the people of God. And the message is the word of God. And the word of God is the breath and the spirit of God, which is Jesus himself. And the people of God also represents Jesus. Right? Because everything is all Jesus. The message is Jesus. The spirit is Jesus. The people represent Jesus. All right? Okay. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time. Now this is Esther 2, verse 19 to 20. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time. Oh. Now, the first time was at 9/11. Now there's another virgins are gathered the second time. When are they gathered the second time? This is the midnight cry. Because now they're the Levites. So they have two meanings. They can be a priest and they can be the Levites. Right? So they can the symbols have more than one meaning? Yeah. Right? Because the virgins are now Levites in this time period. Then Mordecai sat at the king's gate. Esther had not yet showed her kindred nor her people, as Mordecai charged her. For Esther did the commandment of Mordecai like as when she was brought up with him. Right? So in this time, the virgins are actually the Levites. And what happened? Esther had not shown, so Esther is still hidden. So the Levites are still hidden also. All right? Okay. All right. We'll have to show this. All right, here. We will show this this is the timeline for the Millerites. Okay? We're going to show who the Levites are. If we know that the priests are those who come out after 9/11 out of the church structure, which is the Protestant church for them at that time, right? Right. They came out, the Millerites came out of the Protestant churches, and they realized that they were the wise and the foolish virgins. Well, they realized they were hoping, well, they all hoped they were the wise virgins. Right. But who are the Levites then? The Great Controversy, page 376. In the summer of 1844, about 50,000 withdrew from the churches. Which church is this? The Protestant churches. In the summer of 1844, right? When is the summer of 1844? Okay, I'll just start doing this. 1798. This is August 11, 1840. This is April 19, 1844. This is August, I didn't get the what here. This is August 11, 1840. April 19, 1844. This is July 21, 1844. August 15, 1844. So when did the Levites come out? When was the second gathering time? The midnight cry. Did the Levites come out of the churches? Yes, it says right there. Right, they withdrew from the churches. So where do the Levites come out of in our time? So who are the Levites then? So if you understand this, who are the Levites? Yeah. No, these are not the wise virgins. They're coming out of Laodicea. They're coming out of spiritual Israel. They're coming out of God's once professed church, right? The Protestant churches, right? Because here, so when you realize that at the midnight cry is when the second gathering is, that's the gathering of the Levites. Levites are our brothers and sisters that are still in spiritual Israel right now. They will be called out in the midnight cry, right? And they will join together, right? Because that's, okay? This is very, very important to understand, because you have to know who are the Levites and who are the priests. We understand who the priests are. Now we understand who the Levites are, okay? So we still have friends and families that can still be part of the Levites. But those who have been called from 9/11 on basically are the priests.
Yeah, and some will also be tares and...
Yeah. So the tares are the ones that are causing fanaticism in present truth. That's basically it. That's the foolish virgins. The foolish virgins are not in spiritual Israel. The foolish virgins are not. They're the foolish Levites. But there's going to be, there's 50,000 of them that are going to come out. Well, this is 50,000 spiritually. But remember how many passed through from 50,000? How many passed through at the 50? 50,000 came out and only 50 went through. Can you imagine? Because there's a binding time here. Right. Okay.
They also have a binding time.
Yeah, they have a binding time here also, right? Because the binding time for the priest is this period right here. Right there. That's the binding time. This is when they are actually gathering, right? They're hiding right here, and then they are bound right here for the priests. And then the priest will have to call the Levites. And then the Levites, they have to come in and make their decision between here and here. Because at the midnight cry, the Levites come in, and then they all have to make their decision, because they're all going to have to be lifted up, right? At the Sunday law. All right. Okay. Okay, you got that? So this is October 20, 1844. Okay. All right, let's get to this now. So this is the 12. These are the priests are called at this time, right? Between here and here. And you know who are the priests, right? And who are the Levites? All right. They will also be called. Now, let's see. This is the binding time, right? For the priests, starting starting at midnight. All right. This is at the midnight cry is when the crown is given to the priest, which is Esther when she marries. She goes and marries the king. Right. This is when the Esther's feast starts. Well, this is when the release is given. Because now these priests, what happens to them? They have sufficient oil and their probation has closed. Remember? Yeah. They're released from sin now here. They have become perfected. Right? All right. And what gift is given? The gift of prophecy. And this is the virgin's second gathering. The second gathering is who? The Levites. But they're also still hidden because then they have to make their decision right here. Okay. Okay. All right. So the binding time is when the tares are bound to be burned, and the wheat bound for heavenly garner are harvested at first fruits. So the wheat and the tares are to live together until the harvest. When is the harvest? Right. This is the harvest. The harvest is not here or when Jesus comes. When is the harvest? Right here. Because that's the harvest of the first fruits. Right? So when people say, oh, you know what? The wheat and the tares are supposed to live until the harvest. That's right. It is true. Absolutely true. Because what? The harvest is a midnight cry. Right? Because that's the harvest of the first fruits. And these are the messengers when they are purified. Right? They perfect their character during the time of hiding, when they're eating the little book, dying to self, acknowledging the sins of the fathers, return to the old path, remember, right here, eschewing fanaticism, right? Because this is when the fanaticism is going on. Receive the Mara vision, and the prophetic gift is restored and makes a prediction about who? When you study some more, you realize that they're going to be making a prediction. Because just like Josiah Litch. Right, Josiah Litch. Because Josiah Litch history will come in right here. And Josiah Litch made a prediction about Islam. It's going to be lined up right here. They're going to make a prediction about the unlawful marriage, which is the beast. The unlawful marriage, which is the what image of the beast? Because the image of the beast is right here in this time period. The image of the beast is the unlawful marriage between church and state. Right? That's image of the beast. All right? And they're going to be lifted as messengers. They're going to be lifted up again as messengers together with the Levites at this time for the whole world, right? Yeah, for the whole world. Okay, and the priests, the 12 disciples, Elijah, because this is Elijah, this is Elisha, right? And how old are the priests when they can start working?
30.
They're 30 years old, right? Who was 30 years old?
Jesus.
Jesus was 30 years old when he was baptized. Who's another person that was 30 years old? Joseph. Joseph was 30 years old. And David was 30 years old when he was anointed king. All right? King of Judah. All right? Right here there's a lot of 30s right here.
How old was John the Baptist?
Well, 6 months older than Jesus. So 30 and a half.
He was also 30.
Yeah, he was 30. Yeah. Okay. So who are the Levites then? This is the 70 disciples, right? Where's my cursor? The 70 disciples, right? Wait a minute. Okay, there you go. 70 disciples. And how old are the Levites before they can work in the temple? 25. That's right. You'll read that in Numbers. Okay. In Numbers it says that the priests are 30 years old and they work until they are 50 years old. The Levites, they are 25 years old and they work until they're 50. What does it mean that they work until they're 50? What is 50?
The
Pentecost. When is Pentecost?
The seventh.
Sunday law. So they work. Their work.
They all work. And
They all work until the Sunday law. Then their work is done, because their job is to what? To be lifted up and call in the 11th hour workers. The stick, the other stick, right? Because this is the stick of Judah, right? And the other stick is the stick of Ephraim, right? The Gentiles come in. So that's why they're 30 and they're 25, and they work until they're 50. They work until the Pentecost, right? That's when they're lifted up. All right, okay.
Significance of 25?
25. There's others. There are other lines that line up with 25. Yeah, I have to look into that. But there's multiple other things that line up with 25. But 30 lines up right here. 25 lines up here. 30. Yeah, we haven't done 25 yet. Yeah. Yeah, we haven't done 25. Okay. All right. Let's see, what else? I have to make sure I don't, before we continue, I have to make sure we, all right, okay. All right. So the priests, okay, here we go. This is very important. Okay. The priests are numbered to be 12, right? Because 12 is a number, right? And the Levites are numbered to be 70, right? What about the 144,000? Is it a number?
yes.
Ellen White said it is a number. But what about the other stick of the Gentiles when they come in? Are they a number? The Bible says in Genesis 32, verse 12, they shall not be numbered for a multitude. So where does the 144,000 come in? The first fruits. These are the first fruits at this time. The Levites are the first fruits at this time. These are the first fruits that are numbered. The 144,000 are the first fruits that are numbered, right? So the 144,000 comes from the priests and the Levites. But they're not going to come in from the unnumbered multitude. That's going to come in from the other stick, the Gentiles. So what's going to happen to the Gentiles if they're not going to be 144,000? What's going to happen to them? They're going to be martyrs. They're going to be seed, because there's some, all right, they're going to still be seed for others that is still going to come in, right? Because their probation doesn't close until the universal Sunday law, right? So they don't die in vain,
It's
right?
like Stephen.
Mhm.
Yeah, but his seed becomes God.
That's right. So now, when you say you understand where the 144,000 is a number and is the first fruits. This is the first fruits right here, and then the Levites. I don't put it here because that's for later. We're just kind of concentrating here, okay? All right.
Well, it seems like it's. Can I be?
Hmm?
Will I be able to stand to be?
I know.
Be in the 144,000.
You know, this is why when you study more and more of this, you are humbled even more and more.
Yeah.
Are you worthy to be?
That's right. You're actually not proud,
Yeah.
you know. Actually, you're more humbled.
Or God will put us to sleep.
That's right.
Yeah, I believe you're not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. See, this is the stick of Judah. I should have made it cleaner. I still have a lot of wood. That's the stick of Judah. Right? And the stick of Ephraim come in. Because that's when they come in. Because they're hearing of this. They're hearing, but they don't get gathered. The Ephraim will start being gathered here. Right? Okay, I had fun doing this.
I imagine.
All right, Esther 2, verse 21. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth and sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. Oh, okay. So at that time, there's a conspiracy by two of the king's chamberlains. They want to kill Ahasuerus. So who found out about it?
Mordecai.
Yeah, Mordecai found out. But who's Bigthan and Teresh? This is very important. I actually, when studying this, and obviously studying with the School of the Prophets, you find out who's Bigthan and Teresh, because Bigthan and Teresh is obviously now is the enemy of the king. All right.
The eunuchs.
Right, but they were chamberlains, right?
Yes.
All right. So Bigthan means in the winepress, and Teresh means strictness. But I really don't figure out what they actually mean just by looking at their name. But then you have to go back to Esther 1, verse 10. On the seventh day, the king was merry with wine, and he sent his chamberlains to call the queen, right? But the queen didn't want to come.
Yeah.
Who are the seven chamberlains?
Oh, it's one
Yeah.
Who are the seven chamberlains? One of them is Bigthan, which is Bigtha, right? When we studied there, who is the seven chamberlains? The seven churches. All right. So one of these seven churches have now become the enemy of the king. So who's the seven churches that have become the enemy of the king? Is it Thyatira? Or is Thyatira? Right. Yeah, in that time it was, we have to see now.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And who's Teresh? So this is Bigthan, but he used to be one of the seven kings. I guess there's many servants, but he's one of the preferred seven that is allowed to call the queen. But now he apostatized and become a conspirator. The other conspirator is Teresh. And who's Teresh? All right. Okay. All right. Now this is a little complicated, but you have to look at the story of the wilderness. All right. The wilderness. Remember the wilderness. To know about wilderness, we have to remember David. And when David was anointed how many times? 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? The first anointing was by Samuel, remember? In front of his brothers. Right? And what happened after he was anointed? He went back to the wilderness and played his harp to his sheep, right? And then, right, he was a shepherd boy. And then he went to King Saul, and King Saul wanted to kill him with a javelin. And he ran to the wilderness. In the wilderness of, what was the name of that wilderness? En-Gedi. The wilderness of En-Gedi. So in this time period, there's a wilderness. All right? And what about in this time period? Okay, we're doing line upon line. But this is when Jesus was baptized. Did he go into wilderness for 40 years?
40 days.
Oh, 40 days. There you go. At the end of that 40 days, how many temptations did he had to go through? 3 temptations, right? That's his binding off period. Right. Right. Jesus had a binding off period. Right. Let's see, another 40. What about Moses? When he ran away to the wilderness of Midian, right? 40 years, right? He was tending sheep. He was hidden. Was Jesus hidden in the wilderness? Yeah. Jesus was hidden. This is the hiding time. What about Moses? Was he hidden? Yeah. Was he learning about things? Right. He was learning how to be humble, right? What happened at the end of his wilderness experience? He saw the burning bush. And then he says, oh, you know what? I'm not worthy. I can't speak. And the Lord said what? I can make you a messenger. And what's the sign? Throw down your rod onto and it became a serpent, right? And what's another sign? Take your hand and put it into your cloak, and you take it out, it's become leprous, and put it back in. So how many tests did he have? He had 3 tests. At the end of the wilderness period, there's testing times. That is a time period when they're tested. All right? Okay, let's see. There's another 70 here. Okay.
So we're going to have 3 testing times.
Yeah, there's going to be testing in this time period, right in this time spot here. You're going to be also tested also at these times. Yeah. All right. In the first year of his reign, Daniel understood by the books of, the 70 years. The 70 years of desolation of Jerusalem in Babylon is also called a wilderness, right? The 70 years of Babylon is also called a wilderness because, here, Ellen White said, all right, we're just going to skip right down here. God's church on earth at the time of the 1260 years of wilderness, the long period of the relentless persecution, were the children of Israel held captive in Babylon. So the 1260 years of persecution by Rome, which is the wilderness period, is the same as the 70 years captivity of Babylon. So this 70 is also a wilderness because it's the same as the 1260. All right? The 1260. Okay, here's the wilderness. It's really, that's a Sahara Desert. A Sahara Desert, okay. Yeah, I had to make sure. Make sure nobody's confused about that, okay? Because some wilderness don't look like a wilderness. All right, this is the 40. Jesus was baptized, and the end time, he has 3 tests. The first one was that, turn those rocks into bread. Yeah, he was tested 3 times. All right, the other 40 was Moses. Moses in the wilderness. What was his test? The burning bush and his rod in his hand, right? What about the 70 years of... there's another 70. Yeah, a 70 is a wilderness. But this is also the wilderness from 457 until 34 AD. This is the 70 weeks. At the end of 70 weeks is the what? The 1 week. And the middle of that 1 week is 31 AD. 27, 31, and 34. There's a short period of, that's the binding of time for the Jews. Right? At the end of the 70 wilderness time there's going to be a binding time for them. And then what was it said here? That he confirmed the covenant, right? In the last week, he confirmed the covenant with Israel. The covenant was confirmed. And general Israel, they failed the covenant, right? Well, how was the covenant confirmed here? With Moses? His firstborn son was circumcised by who? His wife, Zipporah. Remember? Zipporah circumcised his firstborn son. Gershom was circumcised right there. So this is a covenant time also, right? Now the 1260, right? 538 until 1798, right? Okay, here. Who was persecuting Jesus here? Israel, right?
Yeah.
And who nailed him to the cross? Pagan Rome. Pilate.
Physically, then, but
Physically. But who was the mastermind? The Jews. It was Caiaphas and the Jews, right? Right.
physically the Romans, but the
Right.
Jews crucified him.
Yeah. So the enemies of Jesus were his own church and the government, right? Okay,
So church enemy and the lost.
that's right.
To the enemies of Ahasuerus.
Yeah. Who's the enemies of Ahasuerus?
His own.
Okay. So 1260. Remember 1260? We did this. It's in Revelation 11. We did Revelation 11. Okay, let me go here. Okay. In 1260, who persecuted the church in the wilderness? Obviously, Rome. But did Rome give persecution all the way until the end? No. For 25 years at the end, the persecution stopped, right? And who persecuted from that time on, according to Revelation 11? Who actually crucified Jesus in the city, the great city that is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt? France, right? Because, okay, we have to do this, all right? Right. Revelation 11. All right, let me pick up what? Okay, and Revelation 11, verse 15. All right, where's my cursor here? Revelation 11, verse 15, right? France.
Persecuted her.
For how many years did France persecute the Bible? Remember? We did this. Let's go to Revelation 11. You might know. And, all right. Revelation 11. Revelation 11:1. And there was given me a reed unto a rod, and the angel stood. Rise and measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. Right? Measuring is kind of measuring the temple means is to a judgment, right? But the court which is without the temple leave out. Measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles. And the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. The holy city. What's the whole? This is 1260, right? They're treading underfoot. The papacy is treading underfoot for 1,260, 42 months. And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy. Who are the 2 witnesses? The Old and the New Testament. But according to Revelation 11, who are the 2 witnesses? Okay. Then they prophesy 1,260 days clothed in sackcloth, meaning they are in hiding. They're in hiding, right? Because they're in hiding. In darkness. In a cave, they're hiding. And these are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks, right? These are the 2 witnesses. If any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. These have the power to shut, these are the 2 witnesses. The 2 witnesses have the power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy. Who's that? That's Elijah.
Yeah.
And have power over waters to turn them into blood and smite the earth with all kinds of plagues as often as they will. Who's that? Moses. What does it represent? How does Moses and Elijah represent the Bible?
The law and the prophets.
That's right. The law, because Moses is the law and Elijah is the prophets. The law and the testimony, right? The law and the testimony, Moses and Elijah, right? That's the Bible. And when they have finished, and Ellen White says, when they are finishing. So when the Pope is finishing, right? He's finishing until about 25 years, towards the end here. Towards the end, he's finishing their testimony. The Bible is, finishing their testimony. The beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit. Now, this is not the star or not the smoke that ascendeth out of the... What is a beast? It's a country. It's a nation. It's a nation that comes out of the bottomless pit. What does the ascendeth out of bottomless pit means? It's a new manifestation of satanic power, right? What is the satanic power of the beast that comes out at the end time here? Yeah, it's licentiousness and Sodom and Egypt, right? It's Sodom, Egypt. So because Sodom is licentiousness and Egypt is atheism, right? Right. And their dead body shall lie. So the Bible will lie as it was dead. As Jesus is crucified. And the Spirit and the law, the Spirit of the law and testimony is crucified in Sodom and Egypt. So France is a two-horned power, right? Because it's Sodom and Egypt. Sodom and Egypt, okay. And the people and the kindred and the tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, right? 3 days and a half, because 3 days and a half is 3.5 years. Because they shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves, but they shall still, when their dead bodies are not in graves, they can still witness, right? They can still witness for 3 days and a half. And we studied this because it's from November 1793 until June 1797 that France was an atheistic nation. And they actually crucified the Bible, right? At this time period. So at the end of this wilderness period, there's always a short period of time right here in France. Okay? There's always a short period of time. Okay. Oops. All right. Let me go. All right. So, at the end time period, there's a death, there's an awakening, they're in a standing up or they're raising up, right? Yeah. There's also, remember, there's going to be a death, standing up, and raising up, right? So when Jesus was on earth, who was his enemies? The apostate, rebellious house of Israel, right? And the beast, right? Okay. At this time, who's persecuted? Who persecutes first? The beast. And who persecuted for a short period of time at the end? Right. The dragon. Right. So this is the beast, this is the dragon. This is the apostate church, right? Mm-hmm. This is the apostate church, and this is the two-horn power, right? This is the two-horn power, and this is the apostate church, right? Okay, you say, okay, why do we have to go through this exercise? Yeah.
Just to get the name.
Yeah.
Vision.
Right. Why do we have to go through all of that? And the thing was known to Mordecai, and told it unto Esther, the queen, and Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. So Mordecai found out, Bigthan and Teresh is attempting to overthrow Ahasuerus, want to kill Ahasuerus, and Mordecai told Esther, right? And then Esther certified the king in Mordecai's name, and there was an inquisition. Was made of the matter, and it was found out whether they were both hanged on a tree. So this is now the Sunday law. So the two enemies were hanged at the Sunday law. All right? Okay. So the ones that is a corrupt church, one is a corrupt church. One enemy is the corrupt church. The other enemy is the corrupt two-horned beast. This is very easy. Who is the corrupt two-horned beast? United States. Yes. Before France, right? Before it was Thyatira. Remember? During 1260 is Thyatira, right? One of the 7 churches. But who is it now?
Modern,
It's Laodicea.
Laodicea and, oh, okay.
Dorian, you were right all along.
The Laodicea.
It depends on what time,
That's what I said.
right? So during 1260, it's Thyatira and France. But now it's Laodicea and what?
Laodicea.
Now, are you sure it's Laodicea? What did Ellen White say? We have more to fear from within than from without. Right? There's going to be two enemies. But which one do we fear more?
The within.
Spiritual Israel. But the thing about it is, what's going to happen to them? They're going to be hanged. Does spiritual Israel probation close at Sunday law? Yes. Right? What about the two-horned beast, America? It finishes at the Sunday law. Why? It's going to be ruined by the east wind, and it cannot give up. It cannot It falls down like Balaam on the ass. Remember, it falls down. Both fall down, right? At the Sunday law, and then it has to give its power to. Now to the dragon, now to the 10 kings, which is United Nations. So so both are hanged at the Sunday law. So who's the two enemies that hanged at the Sunday law? Is the corrupt church and the corrupt two-horned beast. Wow, we went through all that just to make sure we understand it completely, right? You have to understand it directly from line upon line, because you cannot just say, okay, it's this or that. No, it has to be all Bible proofed, right from line upon line. Okay? All right, okay. Hey, you know what? Probably just stop right there. Okay, let me just go to my ending title. We'll continue. We can't even finish Esther 2. Right? We just take it slow, right? Yeah, we just take it slow. Right. Just make sure you know who the two enemies are. And who are you worried more?
Within
The one that is within.
and without.
Okay. But remember, who are the priests? Those who have come out of the what? Out of the house of the bride at 9/11, right? And when is their close of probation? Midnight cry, right? Midnight cry. What about the Levites? When are the Levites called? At the midnight cry. And where do they come from? Spiritual Israel, right? But they still have a chance, right? Until. So if they don't join now, they still have a chance. So maybe some of our own brothers and sisters and family members then still can be Levites, right? Because time is closing pretty quick, and their chances to be priests may be soon over, right? Because like Matthias, you have to know the things all the way from. You have to have witnessed 9/11. We have been studying even from, no, we haven't been physically studying from 9/11, but we have studied all the things. It takes a long time to do that. It does take a long time, all right? This is why your oil cannot be transferred. You have to gather it in the hiding time, in the tearing time. Okay.
So Matthias plays Judas, right?
I base it on.
You have to experience it in the hiding time.